I mean, this is the height of audacity. I cannot believe that the news media is that negligent in their ability to do their job. They have. This has been the worst year I've ever seen. The news media not being able to figure out how to do their job. I don't know if they're being blackmailed. I don't know where they got a dog in this hunt. But this cannot stand. And we American citizens have got to stand up. And here's what you can do. You can write your congressman. You can write your senator. You can write the Supreme Court justices. Especially Clarence Thomas and some of these other ones, some of Justice Breyer, any of these people, and you need to write them a letter and tell them that this cannot stand. We have a Constitution. The Constitution means something. And if we're not going to stand up to do the bare minimum, he even says in his own book, he takes audacity of hope. He takes issue with whether or not you should be a strict constructionist. That means strictly adhere to what's said in the Constitution, not read into it whatever you want it to say. He says, who's right? I am not unsympathetic to Justice Scalia's position, who wants to have it exactly what it says in the Constitution. After all, in many cases, the language of the Constitution is perfectly clear and can be strictly applied. We don't have to interpret how often elections are held, for example, or how old a president must be. And whenever possible, judges should view as closely as possible the clear meaning of the test. Well, it can't be any more clear than you must be a natural-born citizen, which is along with the same definition as how old a president must be, which he says in his own book should be strictly interpreted.
Well, you know, another thing, it's a small point, but the fact is that when the blacks turned out en masse to vote for Barack Obama, they thought they were supporting a black man. The blacks in this country that began in the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s, were brought over here, they were West African blacks, but they were true black Africans in our American sense of the word. Quite frankly, Barack is a Arab African. He's not a black African. And I would think that the black people should feel just a little bit defrauded in their own, that they don't have a black man, they've got an African Muslim.
Half African Muslim.
Oh, yeah. That's right, half
yeah,
African
he's
Muslim.
half African, he's half
now I know that's a small
perpetually
point.
peach person. I don't think we're actually seriously white.
No, but the point is that it's a minor thing, but there's so many fraudulent issues surrounding this man. I mean, the reasons in college, why does he want his record sealed? He's got his records sealed all over the place. He supposedly went to Hawaii to see his sick grandmother. I understood that he actually used time there to make sure all of his records in Hawaii were sealed. He's had his college records sealed. Everything he can seal is sealed
right before
about him.
he goes back to and there's this whole thing swirling around. It's around the same time that the deadline was coming in for Philip Berg's discovery for his lawsuit. That that the DNC got them to dismiss it. Now he's taking it up to the Supreme Court. He goes back there to visit his ailing grandmother right before she dies, and he's missing. He's nowhere to be found for a few hours while he's on this trip, and then he flies out of Hawaii, and guess what else happens right as he flies out of Hawaii? The governor seals his birth records.
Seals all of his records in Hawaii.
Seals all of his records. So if this is and then what about his great aunt who lives in a tenement in Boston? She lives in a slum in Boston, and she was even donating, poor thing, to his campaign. He gave the money back. Isn't that nice? Did he give her any money to live on? Did he give her some money to buy a plane ticket back to Africa so that she could come into the United States legally, like legal citizens, like legal immigrants do? No, he didn't do any of those things. He just told her, all she said is, I'm not supposed to talk to anybody until after the election. Yeah. They just figure we'll just, snowball it through and overlook this and nobody will ever know. Then he did it. He did what is that when they do it? A resolution. They did a Senate resolution. The very last sentence of the Senate resolution said, and it is about John McCain being eligible to be the president because he was born to 2 American citizens on American property in Panama at a naval base. At the end of this resolution that was sponsored by Barack Obama, oddly enough, it says, and it is understood that that other candidates for president have not been natural born either.
Oh.
Slip that little puppy dog in there. Isn't that interesting?
Well,
Isn't that interesting? Anyway, I think we're about finished. Is there anything else that we want to talk about? Or we?
No, I would just urge people to use good faith and consider how people act when they lie. And if
well,
you think he's telling the
already
truth,
been held.
I know,
so we need to encourage people, if you are concerned about this issue.
Well, yeah, you need to contact your. I don't know what contacting our senators would do. Maybe Gordon Smith would help, but you can write to the Supreme Court. Who knows if they read it, but it's worth a try to let people know how you feel about it. And I would urge you to get some books and read about Obama. He's going to be around a while. And this book by Jerome Corsi, Obama Nation. We have The Case Against Barack Obama. These are credible people that have written these books. I would urge you, go to the library and get them if you can. If not, you can buy your own. I did. And there are so many things going on in our country that ought to scare you, and I think that we're just sort of whistling past the graveyard and not considering what's going on in our country and what it's going to do to us in the future. We, quite frankly, are at grave risk. And I'm not trying to make you feel bad before Thanksgiving, but I'm telling you, the more you read, the more incensed you will become about how our country is being trashed by the politicians, by the way they spend our money, by the way they waste it. And this whole business of these subprime mortgages, I mean, this was outrageous. This was forced on us by Democrat politicians. And in fact, Obama is one of the guys.
He was on the forefront. He used to train people to go in there and stand around and intimidate bankers into giving loans to people that could not qualify for loans. And he's a huge part of the problem, and we just put him in as president, and this is beyond infuriating.
And he rounded up people to come in and get these subprime loans, and then in one bank in Chicago, he used his lawyerly skills to sue the bank for not meeting a quota to give bad loans. And the banks just kind of bought into this because they could sell those loans off to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and that's not generally understood. People want to hate Bush, blame Bush, whatever. No, the Democrats caused this. They wouldn't let it. John McCain actually tried to introduce reforms into the Senate to change the way Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac behaved, and he was denied the opportunity to ever do that. His potential legislation went nowhere. So Obama was part of that mess. He helped perpetrate it. And here we are with $1 trillion bad loans out there.
We could go on for
Thank you so much for listening to our discussion on voter potential fraud.
That wasn't potential. Acorn was registering.